name is Erin Johnston. I am a channel account manager for PACE Funding. Our headquarters is in Los Gatos. We serve all of California, Florida, Missouri, and we will be offering services in New York soon. Today, we're going to talk about going solar for ADU. The California Solar Initiative, known as CSI, is legislation that requires all new construction to have solar panels beginning this year. There are some exceptions to this rule. If a home has too small of a roof or an abundance of shade, there is an exception there. And any housing development that has a community solar project is exempt from having panels on their actual property. So let's look at the cost. For a single family home, which would be any new construction home, we're looking at about $8,400 of an upfront investment added to the cost of construction to install a PV system. That would be significantly less for ADU since it's a much smaller space. But the idea is that the reduced energy usage is going to offset this cost, and any solar home automatically has a higher home value. So there are a few different ways to pay for solar. You can, of course, use cash. There are a number of financing options, secured or unsecured, and you can lease a solar. I do not advise lease. It doesn't increase the property value at all. So what does this solar mandate mean for ADU? For one, you're able to receive the tax benefits from the investment tax credit. So for the last few years, that tax credit was 30% of your project cost. Today, it's 26%. So anything installed through the end of 2020 will receive a 26% tax credit. Anything in 2021 will receive a 22% tax credit. And then going forward, the tax credit is going away. So now is the best time to go ahead and install solar, add solar to your ADU. It does mean that there's going to have to be a more comprehensive design process and consideration for additional costs. Adding solar is an additional cost, but it will increase clean and renewable energy, especially for the state of California, because our goal is to get to net zero, and it will increase the property value, and it does make the unit more attractive to tech-savvy and environmentally concerned tenants. I know personally, I would much rather rent a space that has solar than a space that doesn't. And then we also need to consider the addition of advanced energy storage. So that would be a Tesla Powerwall or some way for you to be able to sustain keeping the lights on during the PG&E brownouts and blackouts and emergency shutoffs due to the wildfires. So as I mentioned, some of the benefits are contributing to California reaching net zero. The goal initially was to have that done by 2020. We're not there. We are leading the nation in self-generated power, so that's definitely a good thing, but we do have a long way to go. Another benefit is being able to protect yourself against rising energy costs. So PG&E continues to inflate their utility rates at the expense of all of us. So if you look at your PG&E bill, you'll actually see that there is a line item under the taxes and fees, and we are all still paying for PG&E's bankruptcy in 1984. Every single California resident that has PG&E is paying for that. They recently filed bankruptcy again. So what does that mean? It means we are going to pay for it again. So when you install solar, you're actually able to lock in a fixed rate for your energy consumption for 20 years through the net metering agreement. So not only are you locking in a predictable fixed cost, but you're increasing your property value, you're able to take advantage of the solar tax credit, and we're creating jobs for the community. From the person who sells the solar to the person who installs to the person who inspects, definitely a lot of job creation there. So in order to size a system, we look at a number of variables. One of those is available space. So can we put it on the roof? Do we put it in the yard? Do we do a ground mount? Do we install it on a shade structure? There are lots of options for finding an available space for solar. We also consider the array orientation. It's a number of factors considering which direction the home faces, the roof pitch. There's all kinds of factors that go into orientation. And then we look at the budget. So what is the property owner's budget? What have they allocated for solar for an ADU? And we work within those confines. Traditionally, sizing a system is based on a customer's current usage. So with ADU, we have to look at anticipated usage. And then we also have to consider, along with the space and orientation, what kind of sun exposure we have for max production. We do use a calculation. It's based on an average number of sun hours per day according to geographic location. But all of those things combined influence how the system is sized. For anticipated usage, because we don't have a history of somebody living in the home because it's a brand new home, we would look at how efficient is the design. So we like to take a whole house approach, which would include measures such as air sealing, advanced energy storage, a battery, for example. If there is an HVAC system, is it centrally located? Is it a split system? Is it a mini split? Are all the appliances electric? What type of insulation R value do we have? What kind of water heating? All of these things use a certain number of kilowatt hours per month, per year, however you'd like to look at it or break it down. And all of these things play a factor in sizing a solar system. The more efficient the unit, the less panels are needed. So you may ask, how do I pay for all of this? So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, I work for PACE Funding Group. We're located in Los Gatos. We are a property assessed clean energy finance company. Property assessed clean energy was developed in Berkeley over a decade ago. It was developed by a man named Cisco DeVries, who worked for the city of Berkeley, and he wanted to put all of the power, or the city of Berkeley wanted to put all of the power lines underground, but they didn't know how they were going to pay for it. So Cisco suggested having the city finance this project in-house and then pass the cost along to people through the property tax bill. So the city said, okay, let's do that. And they were able to finance a $72 million project to move their power underground. And then because it was so successful, Cisco said, I'm going to take this to the residential market. And he founded a company called Renew Financial. He was with that company for a number of years and then left to go work for a company called Connect, which is a free platform. Anyone can sign up, anyone in PG&E territory, and it monitors your energy consumption to help change behavior. So behavior with energy consumption is huge because people who install solar or other energy efficient measures tend to forget the behaviors that drive their consumption and end up using more energy. So Connect is a great way to watch your behaviors and change your behaviors when it comes to energy consumption. PACE is a government-supported finance program where homeowners can use equity in their homes to make energy-efficient upgrades and repay it through their property tax bill. We do finance energy-efficient measures for new construction. We are not able to finance the entire construction project, but we can finance a portion, anything that meets our energy guidelines. We offer 100% financing, which means no money down. It is not credit-based, so there's no minimums on FICO. The amount that's financed will not appear on a credit report. It is solely attached to the property. we're able to finance up to 15% of the property's value. We have flexible repayment terms anywhere from 5 to 30 years based on the life of the project and the warranty of the product. So we would never finance anything for 30 years that we only expected to work for 15 years. The interest on the payments may be tax deductible. So legally they are tax deductible. Dependent on whether it will actually benefit someone is a whole nother story, and we would want them to consult their CPA. But it is treated like mortgage interest, so there is tax deductibility there. We do not have any prepayment penalties or any charges associated with re-amortization. So the customer is able to put $2,500 back towards the loan at any time over the life of the loan, as many times as they want to lower a payment. We're also able to prove income digitally with a click of a button. Our entire process is paperless from start to finish, and we do have fixed competitive interest rates. So you may ask, how do I become eligible for PACE? One, the customer has to live in a participating community. All of the Bay Area counties are currently participating, so that's great news. The city or county government has to opt in. They have to sign an agreement in accordance with our sponsor, CDCSA. We currently have 410 jurisdictions in California, and we're adding more all the time. We have to be working with a participating contractor. So it is a channel process, meaning that the contractor has to be enrolled in our program, and then the customer would work with the contractor to secure the financing. The contractor would work with me to get the customer approved. All of our contractors are vetted. We make sure that they have a current license, bond, insurance, positive consumer reviews, and that they complete a training course with us. The products also have to meet the efficiency guidelines. As I mentioned before, we are able to finance over 900,000 products. I have a list if anybody is interested in reviewing that list. The property has to be eligible in the sense that it has to be a single family home. We can do up to 4 units. So a single family home, a duplex, triplex, fourplex, new construction, ADU, they're all eligible. And then in order for the property owner to qualify, they must have the ability to pay. So we do have to verify their income. They must be current on their mortgage and property taxes. They cannot have any bankruptcies, notice of default, foreclosures for the last 2 years, and no involuntary liens over $1,000. So that pretty much sums up what I had to share with you guys today. This is my information. Feel free to take a picture, write it down, reach out to me at any time with questions. I did see that there are a couple questions in the chat, so let me see if I can address those.
Erin, before you go into the chat, wait a minute.
Yes.
Bear with me. Would you mind stop sharing the screen so I could see you?
Oh, sure, yeah. Sure.
Because I've realized I've skipped an important part of your introduction. You seem to be very knowledgeable about the space, and I know that you used to run a construction-related business. Would you mind saying a few words about yourself and how you got into construction space?
Yeah, absolutely. So many years ago, I co-owned a plumbing company with my husband. So that's where I got my start after graduating from UC Davis. And then we sold that business and went into the heating and air industry, and then eventually solar. So my construction background is over a decade. I'm certified by the Building Performance Institute as a building analyst specializing in energy efficiency. I've had my own consulting business for, I think, about 5 years now. My husband and I also do solar, are very involved in the solar industry. And I also have certifications from CalCERTS for HERS, which is testing residential heating and air systems. I also have a certification from the EPA in regards to heating and air systems.
That's pretty impressive list, as is. Yeah. You were saying, you've mentioned a lot of items on the list of how you evaluate panels. Is that what you do through PACE for your customers?
So unfortunately, through PACE, I can only offer the financing, but with the consulting business that my husband and I have, we're able to do that as well. So yes, anybody who's interested in having a system sized is more than welcome to reach out to us.
Okay, and you're saying that the list of people, the list of manufacturers who are vetted by PACE is also available for those interested, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And if you don't mind, could we put in the chat that the link to the website that you were mentioning about behavior and energy consumption?
Yes, absolutely.
If you can do that.
Yes, absolutely.
And one more question before we move on to Samir and his company.
Sure.
You've mentioned that you are vetting contractors, and you've also mentioned that you are looking at consumer reviews. And we are all homeowners, we are all users of different services, and we've all been in one way or the other disappointed in public reviews. So how do you guys treat it?
So we will take 3 positive reviews. So a contractor who may have 10 online reviews, maybe 2 or 3 of them are not favorable, we'll take the 3 positive ones and use those through our verification process. We also accept a written letter from a homeowner who had a good experience with the contractor. So there's definitely alternative ways to prove the consumer reviews.
And the training course for the contractors, is it an online course or is it in person? I mean, now everything is online, but just let's say it's business as usual.
It's actually a combination. So we have them take a short course on code of conduct, and then we have a more comprehensive course that teaches them online about the PACE program. And then I usually conduct a in-person training or a digital training, whatever the contractor is comfortable with, to show them how to utilize the financing resources and tools.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Over to Samir right now, and Samir has also been in this, actually he has been in the solar industry for more than a decade. So I'm looking forward to hear how you approach the solar installation business.
Absolutely. So yeah, just a little bit of introduction about myself and my partner who's kind of on mute on the call. A little bit of background about myself. I came to this country almost 18, 19 years ago for a master's in structural engineering. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I used to design bridges for a living a long time ago. At some point, I transitioned over to the business side. I have an MBA from University of Virginia. And I entered the solar industry right after that, around 2010, when really it was early stages and it was taking off. I was part of this company called Sun Edison. I was a small commercial installer at the time I joined them, and really helped them scale. And it wasn't just me; it was a decent sized company, 200 people when I joined. But it became the largest renewable energy company in the world. We scaled to utility scale solar, residential solar. We entered wind energy. It was a really interesting journey. Installed solar in 4 different continents, 30 different countries, lots of gigawatts installed. And, along the way, I also had the pleasure of moving from projects and installations and executing solar to actually developing technology. So I was in charge of our cell manufacturing business, which really, is the core and the foundation of the solar panels, as well as, racking. My partner, actually, he was my supervisor at some point, and we became peers as well. So we've been together for almost 6 to 7 years in solar. Just, solar has become such a passion for us. And we've seen this huge movement in the residential space where, solar is becoming a lot more familiar to, the regular people. And it's not really this whole huge pie in the sky technology anymore. People understand it's very viable. It's a long-term solution. So we branched out and created our own startup where we're, developing solar systems for residential play. Okay.
Yep, that's pretty good introduction as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, and how long ago have you set up SunVault?
Yeah, we really started Q3 last year. So we, set up the license, got the company going. We did a bunch of systems in Q3 and Q4, Q1 as well, but obviously COVID has slowed us down a little bit. But, it's back to, usual almost, where, we're getting a lot of queries, and we actually had a decent amount of backlog from when we started. So we're still trying to go through it. But yeah, really excited about being here talking to you guys.
Yeah. So do you have any slides about your company, or shall we just go into the quick Q&A mode?
No, I do have slides, and I'll try to go through this fairly quickly. I think my focus today is kind of walk people through, I think it is a little bit of overlap with what Erin presented, but I wanted to walk you guys through why solar, a few questions on the house specifically. Is your house suitable? And then lastly, like, what are the big steps that as a company we help the customers take our residential homeowners through, okay? So this is the agenda, right? And we'll talk about these 4 topics, and we'll open it up for Q&A. So really first, right, why solar? I think we really look at it in 3 buckets, right? One is just savings, right? I think there's a huge amount of savings that people don't see. We actually like to call it the cost of not going solar, because it's really a no-brainer. Erin touched on the fact that solar PG&E is forecasted, and it's already been doing, but at an annual rate of 3%, your energy rate is your rates are going to go up, and it's only going to add up. And for an average house over the 25-year life of the system, you're talking about 40K to 90K in savings that people are not taking advantage of by not going to solar. And I think Erin mentioned about the tax credit as well. It was 30% last year. It's being ratcheted down every year. This year it's 26%. Next year it goes to, I think, 22%. And this is irrespective of the bracket. You could be in the highest bracket or the smallest bracket. You get the 26% on the value you pay for the solar as a credit. Secondly, I think the home, obviously, homes with solar have a better market value. There's also the factor that you could completely become independent if you really wanted to. And then lastly, the environment, right? There's a lot of benefits. One of the key things why I entered solar after business school and I had a bunch of different options was really passion for the environment. My wife works in sustainability as well, and we really take this seriously. And getting these systems done on individual houses and allow them to make the impact is pretty meaningful. Is my home suitable? I think very high level questions before we really even go and start creating proposals is these 3 questions, right? If the answer to these 3 questions for your house is yes, then absolutely you should go solar, pending some site constraints. So if your bill is over $100 a month on the electricity side, if your roof is less than 20 years old and it's in decent condition, and then lastly, if it's either a shingle, tiled, or metal roof, solar goes seamlessly in all 3 options. So these are the 3 questions I think fundamentally that any homeowner can really look at their own house and answer. And if the answer is yes, definitely approach a solar professional. And then lastly, what makes, before I go into the steps, right, what makes for an efficient solar system, right? There's really 3 basics, right? One is, very robust design. Second is the right choices in technology. And lastly, the execution being spot on, right? So in system design, obviously leveraging what the existing roof is and what the conditions are as far as the sun exposure and irradiation are concerned, and designing a system that maximizes what resources available on your roof. The aesthetics also obviously matter. So not just like the curb appeal, but also what technology and what panel look should be like is important to a lot of homeowners. For me personally, it is. And then lastly, how do you integrate it into the electrical system, right? That's kind of like the fundamentals of the solar system design. Technology, there are 3 main things, right? And you want the technology to be efficient, you want it to be aesthetic, and you want to pick the reliable products. And like I mentioned, right? I've worked in China, I've worked in Germany, working a lot on the panels and microinverters that you see. So very familiar with how products are developed, what's the right technology, and even bankable products, right? You want products that you can bank behind. Like large utilities, they really care about the balance sheet of these companies, the ability to back warranties and technology as well. So we're very careful in what products we choose and what we recommend to our customers. And then lastly, execution, right? I think the best way is to build a modular method of installation which ensures it's safe and it's error-free. Being able to transition and transit through all of these city applications for permits as well as interconnection with PG&E. And then lastly, how do we support once the system is installed as far as monitoring is concerned and warranty is concerned? So I'll touch in terms of like if you decide to go solar, what are you looking at? I'll talk about the 5 main steps over here, and I'll try to move through this quickly. But the step 1 to 4, right, is really about getting solar, and it's completely should be managed by the solar provider, the company that's going to be, you hire. For example, SunVault, us, we completely manage the steps for us. And step 5 is around interconnection to PG&E, which we support, but it's really the customers. It goes through your online account, so it's really the customer's responsibility to do that. And as you can see, the timeline, 3 to 4 weeks, you could have solar on your roof, operating, producing energy. And PG&E, given it is PG&E, takes anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks to ensure you're connected to the grid. And that connection really means you're pumping excess energy back into the grid and pulling energy from the grid when you need to. And I'll cover that in the last step. So step 1, right? I mean, we really come out and look at your energy needs. We look at, what your consumption patterns look like. If you're looking to have electric cars in the future or pools, or you already have something of that sort. And, the survey would really include looking at your roof condition, some of your electrical panel design, accessibility for installation, and if there's any obstructions, right, on the roof, like trees, for example. As you can see, right, the green bubbles that you see on the right-hand side on the image, those are trees, right? And this is a software model that we use to really figure out where's the best sun that you get on your roof, where are the obstructions that we need to account for. You'll also see things like, fire, chimneys or skylights that we account for when we're doing the layout for this particular. This is a Cupertino house. And, ultimately your inputs in terms of, your energy bill, the site conditions, and then ultimately the solar resource on your roof help us design a proposal for you. And really the output is we give you a final layout, really. We give you product options. And actually, typically we could even give a few different options depending on what the customer's goals are. And then really a financial analysis on, we like to think about solar as not really how much do you pay up front or, some other metric, but I think the biggest metric here, and I think Erin touched it on that, is what's the payback period? Because depending on the size of the house, you may be paying a really small upfront amount or really big upfront amount because your energy needs are different. But ultimately, in how many years will you pay back for it? And after that, how long do you enjoy free energy, right? So that's really the proposal stage. Once that's done, we enter into a contract. We go into this detailed design phase where we go back and create detailed drawings, which include structural, layout, electrical. We do it with a professional engineer, and these are stamp drawings. Third stage is really we go, and that typically takes a week. Third stage is we work with the city. On the right, you kind of see, a stamp for Cupertino, for example, where we, submit these plans, work with the city on getting approval to go construct and build the solar system. That typically takes a week for us. Along this time, we're also working on, once we enter the contract, we're sourcing the panels, we're sourcing the racking, as well as other materials like microinverters. Some of them we keep on stock, but obviously, customer choices may require us to go procure them. So we do that as soon as we sign a contract. So drawings and permits go along in parallel. And lastly, the day of the installation, right? We obviously work with you on figuring out what's the right schedule and timing for us to come out and do this. But really the whole process takes, most houses we finish on the same day. Sometimes it, trickles over to the next day. So it could be a day to 2 days, depending on the size of the system. Here's an example of a Cupertino home. These are 16 panels of 320 watts each. That's around 5.1 kilowatts. It's a 2,700 square foot house. And, the installation is really broken up into 3 pieces, right? The mechanical install, which is, really what you see visually. It is all mechanical. And then really running all the cables back into the electrical panel of your house, and the monitoring system, that's the electrical piece. And we try to cover both of them on the same day. As far as noise is concerned, a lot of people, sometimes are curious about this. I think the noisiest equipment we use is a hammer and a handheld drill. So it's pretty simple installation wise. And, homeowners can stay in the house or they can leave. It's up to their choice. It's not very disturbing, but you'll probably hear people walking on the roof. And like I mentioned, it's a day to 2 day activity. And then at this point, right, you're producing energy. Your house actually is drawing power from your solar system. But what you're not doing is really, excess energy that you produce during the day is going to waste. And energy that you're pulling in from PG&E at night is not being offset by the excess energy. So for that, what you really need to do is step 5, which is interconnection, right? Here, we help our customers fill out this interconnection application. It's through their own online PG&E accounts. And it's a pretty straightforward application once we provide all the details. And this whole process is called net metering, which allows you to get the credit for excess energy and really balance out, right? I mean, grid really acts like your battery system where you're storing excess energy or really pushing excess energy during the day and pulling energy back at night. And what you do is you stop getting monthly bills. You get a true up at the end of 12 months. So if you were to install your system 30th June, your next bill would be 30th June 2021, where PG&E, but actually you can monitor on a daily and monthly basis whether you're using more than you're consuming. And you'll see, right, in summer months, you may be consuming less than you make. In winter, you may be consuming more than you produce with your solar. But that's why you kind of do a true up at the end of the year. In terms of monitoring, I kind of put some screenshots up over here on the right-hand side. The top two charts are examples for a house. It's really my house, April and May, right? April, as you can see, there were a lot of, cloudy days, and I ended up, and this is daily bar chart, I ended up consuming more from PG&E than giving. So green is the days when I push energy into the grid, and blue is when I take energy from the grid net, right? And the purple is really the temperature of the day, which is relevant information. And then, as you can see in May, pretty much every day I pushed energy back into PG&E grid, right? So this is daily monitoring. At the same time, along with the application and the system that we come out and install, you get an application where you can actually monitor how much you're producing on a 15-minute interval. So I put two examples on the left-hand side. Bottom left is an example of a sunny day where the curve looks perfect, right? It starts at sunrise. It peaks somewhere at 12 to 3 or 4 p.m. and it starts going down and hits 0 at sunset. And on the right-hand side, you see a place where it was a great day, but you ended up seeing some clouds, right? So the net delta on how much you produce between a sunny day and a cloudy day in this particular example was really only 10%. But you can really monitor how your system is going. The app also allows you to really check if each module that you have, or solar panel that you have on your roof, is producing the same amount of energy or different, and so forth. So it's a very cool method. It's available on your app and allows homeowner a lot of power to really look at system performance. Okay, that's all I had to present today, and I'll stop sharing and really open.
I have one question for you right now, and then I'll take a short break so that people could think about if they have any questions. The question is, you are a homeowner and you're also in the solar industry business. Have you got batteries for backup for yourself?
Yeah. So batteries are definitely an option. We can do batteries, but again, I think, like I mentioned, the way we look at, again, batteries, they're going through their own innovation and price reduction, cost reduction curve. They're behind the solar curve. We've come a long way from like 5 years ago when solar used to be much more expensive. So battery right now, they're pretty expensive. And, typically we don't recommend customers to just do batteries. I think of the grid as a battery in itself, in the sense that, you're always storing energy, right? You're selling energy to the grid, pulling in, so you always have power. And you can set up a system so that I designed my house to be 105, 110% of what I currently consume, leaving some margin. So I know I will never pay PG&E any money, but I'm using them when I need to at night. The real scenario where at this current prices of batteries, where it makes value to use batteries, is when you want to be completely grid independent, right? Where if the grid goes down, you're not affected. Today, if the grid goes down, I am affected, but the grid hardly goes down. So for me, I'm not able to justify the price I pay for batteries. But if for someone it's a concern, or it's a really important thing to have, where you're completely independent of the grid, if it goes down, you're not impacted, then definitely do batteries. And we can definitely help with that.
Okay. So basically, if you suffer often from power shutdowns, then it's something to consider.
Or, some people like to be completely off grid, right? And, for them, great solution there.
If anyone wants to ask any questions, you can do that in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask it out loud. While people are thinking about it, if both of you could share what your advice will be to people who are thinking of building an ADU, kind of back to that topic, and now they have to install the panels, would there be any benefit in considering adding them to the main house at the same time if the main house doesn't have them?
I can go first. So typically, sizing of ultimately depends on, what percentage of your energy consumption you want to offset. Okay. And if you really want to try and be as close to, and I recommend customers completely offset the energy production, otherwise you're leaving money on the table. ADU, depending on the size of the ADU, you may or may not be able to fit entirely on the ADU. There's also aspects of the direction of the roof of the ADU. You want the direction of the roof to be facing the south or southwest for maximum production. It does not necessarily mean that you cannot put panels on the other roof surfaces. It's just your payback period increases by a little bit. So I think there's nothing stopping really from doing the entire system on the ADU roof if you have the size, or doing the entire system on this house, or actually splitting it. All of these are options that we can discuss and figure out the best choices for your particular situation.
And we have a question from Mark, and he reminds me of my own question that I wanted to ask. So he's thinking, like, if you have all the solar panel systems, is there any, like, what is their lifespan, basically? How do you know that it's time to change them?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So solar, the one context is, solar efficiency has improved by a huge amount every year, at least, in the phase between 2012 and 2017. Those 5 years were, transformational as far as how much efficiencies have been gained. So if you have something that's, even like 4 or 5 years old, you have something which, is not the most efficient out there today, but at the same time doesn't mean you replace it, right? I think the big questions are, is this solving your energy needs, first of all, right? If it's meeting your energy requirements, definitely keep it, because it's a sunk cost, right? But if it's not meeting your energy needs, and you're paying a big portion of your bill through your pockets, then you definitely need to look at whether it makes sense to replace these panels. And replacing panels is not a hard thing to do. You may be able to use the racking as is, or we may have to remove the racking and do the entire system. But it really comes back to what the payback looks like. Removing them will not lead to additional costs, is what I would say. Not much is what I would say.
Are we recycling them already, or?
Yeah, there are efforts to recycle them. You guys are asking some really good questions.
Sorry.
I worked on developing products for a long time, and we built plants that were 500 acres in size, and you can imagine how many panels and racking and inverters go on there, right? And we talk a lot about sustainability on this. So there is an industry that's growing up. Obviously, as you can imagine, it's trailing the actual industry, but there's an industry coming around the bend trying to figure out how do we best recycle these things. And to be honest, we don't have a very, very good solution for everything we put out there, but I'm sure in a year or two we'll have better answers on this.
And what's the best way to maintain the panels? Like, we need to wash them every year, or what else?
We actually, there's no maintenance required on the panels. That's the beauty of solar. Whatever you pay up front, we try to keep it simple for the customers. What we quote will include everything. You will not have to pay anything except the PG&E application fee, which is I think $150. Mm-hmm. And then you just shut it and forget it, because I installed my system a year ago. I've not worked back on the roof ever. The only thing that you could really do is see if it's gathering a lot of dust, if you're next to a very dusty road and it's collecting dust. And even then, we've done studies, and really dusty panels also reduce your production by 1%, 1.5%.
Okay. Interesting.
Wiping them off is like the only thing you could possibly do, but it's probably not many people do that, and it's not probably worth the difference.
I see that Erin has already answered the question about what $3 per W mean. So guys, if anyone has any questions, you are welcome to ask them.
If you don't mind, Alicia, there's questions I'm trying to answer on chat. I'll try to just do it verbally.
Yeah, go.
People are asking questions about the cost, right? So I kind of like roughly gave out a $3 a watt number. The pricing per watt really depends on, so first of all, how many watts you need depends on your energy needs, right? And how your roof is. So we'll have to do a little bit of, and it's again, obviously completely complementary in terms of providing you proposals and options. So how your roof is located and what your energy needs are will primarily drive the size of your system, right? So that determines the kilowatts. And based on kilowatts will come pricing. So I can pretty much tell you dollar per kilowatt, roughly, 2.75, 3, somewhere in there. the play there is between really the technologies that you choose. So we can provide you options, really a range of panels and microinverters. Really, panels are the big drivers where, black and black, where, the entire panel is black, the glass looks black. It's really aesthetics at that point. On the higher end where we look at, $3. When you want to, you don't care about aesthetics a whole lot, where you're looking at the panels that look silver with silver boundaries and they've got blue tops. And there's something in between as well where the edges and the frame is, silver and anodized aluminum. It's not completely black anodized. And the panel is, the glass is black. So that's kind of like in between, that alone can, have a play of, 25 cents a watt. So you're talking between 2.75 to 3. That's kind of like what we've been pricing our systems at.
Have you looked at Tesla roof?
Yes. Yeah. So, if you look at, so Tesla recently, they've kind of like revived the entire solar program. One of our motivations to really get into this was we were part of a big company. Okay. And solar at this point, I would say, it's not a huge technology. It's almost semi-commoditized. That, the large balance sheets and SG&A that these larger companies carry was really not sustainable and was driving a lot of if you see the market share, right, in the last 3-4 years, it's flown away from large companies to startups and smaller residential installers, just because the cost structure for these large companies is not sustainable. So what Tesla did, and I think it's a smart move for them, but it doesn't work for every homeowner. They've created these modularized systems. So they'll sell you like not customized for your roof, square blocks of solar panels, 3.8 kilowatts, 7.6 kilowatt, 10.4 in multiples of 3 point some kilowatts. So it's literally like a square block of 3x4 modules that'll come and it has to fit on your roof. If it doesn't fit, then sorry. And if you want something between 3.8 and 7.6, which most houses of 2,000 square foot or 2,500 square foot need, then you don't have a solution there. So that they're doing that because that allows them to remove a lot of their SG&A out of this. But it's not super convenient for everybody. And then I think to talk about, if you're referring to the solar tiles that they launched with a lot of fanfare, it's not really commercially available at this point. If it was, the cost would be pretty high. And then lastly, it comes with the roof replacement. So you would have to replace your roof. Or it has to be a new house.
There is a question about microgrids, because I think Tesla might be the one who will have one branded microgrid, right? Having panels and the batteries together.
Microgrids can come in all sizes. I mean, you could create your own microgrid and you could create a community microgrid.
You'll have to explain what microgrid is first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically like a smaller grid, right? I mean, if you think about PG&E, that's a utility. You could create your own end-to-end system where you're producing and transmitting solar, storing and transmitting solar at the same time. So like almost like, how we talked about going off grid, right? You could create your own microgrid and go off grid. And there are things called community solar where, smaller groups of housing societies are trying to create their own, and again, I wouldn't say they're completely disconnected from the grid, but they're trying to create their own sources of solar. So it's like a larger, almost like a mini utility scale plant that would serve, I don't know, anywhere from 20 to 100 houses. And it's a pool-in solar grid that's been developed by a bunch of different homeowners in the community. So those things are out there. It doesn't work for everybody. It's not available for everybody. And, I stand by residential solar where, you have complete end-to-end control on what you want to install, how should it look like, what should it produce, and you can add to it whenever you want. You can remove from it whenever you want. So hope I answer you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Erin, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, actually, yes. I was going to see if I could share one more time. I have a resource that might be helpful for figuring out a good price point for getting a solar quote.
Mm-hmm.
So here at californiadgstats.ca.gov, anytime a solar system is granted permission to operate, those details are recorded here. So if you go to this website and click on Find a Solar Installer, you're actually able to enter a zip code. So I'll put my zip code in here and click search, and it's going to show me what the average cost per watt is for my area. And then it will also show you which companies are installing in the area and what their cost per watt is. So that way you're able to ensure that you're getting a competitive price.
Mm-hmm.
I shared the link in the chat.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, that's interesting because usually the cost is the first question that homeowners ask.
But let me ask more specific, so then we don't have to go through back and forth in here.
Yeah.
I am a homeowner layman in here. I don't understand all the technical terms. So help us to understand that, maybe giving more precise so we can make an intelligent decision. Let's say, for example, a house, let me make it an average number, 2,000 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, the PG&E bill between $100 and $150. What will be a cost unit? You can say, I don't need a precise number. You can say 20,000, 30,000, and whatever the number is, what are the choice for homeowner? Do they must pay you upfront? Can they have an installment payment? If so, what kind of financing you provide? Then we can make an intelligent decision.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you're again asking a pretty core and fundamental question. And so generally speaking, right, sorry, I didn't get your name. What's your name?
Joseph.
Joseph, yeah. So generally speaking, if you're talking about the kind of like the house you described, I think we did something really close to that recently in Hayward, and that was around a 4 kilowatt system. And, a 4 kilowatt system, like I mentioned, with at $3 a watt roughly, comes to 12,000. So it could cost you anywhere between $11,000 to $12,000 upfront, and you get 26% of that back in credits, right? So net, it may be costing you around, $8,800 to $9,200 roughly, if I'm getting my math right. Okay.
Do you say the 11,000 is that an upfront cost or is that a total cost?
It's the total upfront cost, in a sense, the total out of your pocket cost that you pay before you file your taxes for the next year, right? So for 11 to 12,000, you will have a system working on your roof, completely connected, no other costs. Okay.
No other costs moving forward.
Nope. And then at the end of the year, let's say you do your installation in July, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the year, when you file your taxes, you can get 26% of that money back when you file. So
you get a tax credit there, okay, which is good. Now, your system sounds like, are you trying to calculate it around a little bit more than you require so you don't have to pay PG&E? That's the goal. You may have to pay PG&E a little bit if the calculation or if your usage are higher than what that is. Is that correct at the end of it? That's the first question.
Yeah, that's what I recommend. That's how I've done my own house and my partner's house, because the cost at which you produce your own energy is much lower than the cost at which PG&E sells you energy, right? So you want to minimize as much as possible what PG&E, whatever you buy from PG&E. And at the same time, anything excess that you produce, you can sell to PG&E, but PG&E accepts it at a reduced price. So you don't go too much over, but you want to go over. And
so the idea is you go to break even on there. You're not trying to make money, but you're trying not to give too much money to PG&E either. So we try to balance it. I understand that part. So that's good. So that means homeowner are responsible in this case 11,000. 11,000?
Yeah.
1,000, not 100. Yeah. Would be nice, but 11,000. So 11,000. Now, what are the choice of homeowner? So they just have to come up the cash up front, or do you provide?
They can go to Erin. And Erin will help them.
Okay, so then maybe Erin can help me. Now, based on that, you will go through a financing part. Do they have qualified like their loan? And the related question is, if there's a financing, what happens if the homeowner sells the home? So maybe Erin can help me understand that part.
Yeah. So our financing functions very similar to like a HELOC or a home equity line of credit, because we're using equity in the home to lend the homeowner, money to make the efficiency upgrade. Now, if they were to refinance or sell the home, they would want to plan on paying off that line item on the tax bill, because it does take first position. It is attached to an existing lien. So now installing solar increases the home's value. And then if you were to borrow the money to pay for the system, it's not a dollar for dollar exchange, but it is definitely okay. It's okay to finance solar. You won't come out on the bottom.
So my related question is that assumable, or do they must pay it off when they sell the home?
It is legally transferable to the new owner of the home. However, the lending industry, because this is a newer type of financing, they haven't really caught on to that. So it usually is at the sole discretion of the lender, whether they will let it transfer or not.
Okay, so that may or may not happen, but it's possible. Okay.
Yes, it is possible.
So in something like that, 11,000 at the end of the year, you should get the 26% tax credit. Is that right, Samir?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So that helps. So they will need to come up with 11,000 or do refinancing or whatever, So that's a separate discussion.
Yeah.
If they can put in line or.
Yeah, and Joseph, the payback period is a very simple math, right? I mean, once you remove 26% out of that 11,000, you're left with, I don't know, 8,500 or something of that sort.
Mm-hmm.
Just, and if you're paying 150, you're paying 1,800 a year to PG.
Right. So I'm trying to think, quickly on that. My head cannot think that fast, So for that, let's say 7,000, how long they will take them to get their return? Let's say 7,000.
Roughly 5 to 6 years.
How many?
Roughly 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, it's about, I would agree.
That's not bad. Okay.
And the system,
I was hoping less than 10, but beyond 10, then people, maybe questionable, because a lot of the people, the reason I mentioned that I am a real estate agent, so I'm very familiar with that, and some of the homeowner concerned about when they sell the home, but if you have 10-year loan, people can understand, hey, after that, I don't have to worry about it, then they're more comfortable of doing that. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
The system is all the products that you get right now in the market, especially the ones we recommend, the highly bankable ones, they all have not just material and workmanship warranty for 25 years, but even production warranty for 25 years.
Because remember, they're saving $100 to $150 a month, the PG&E bill. Oh, of course, they still have the gas they have to pay, but the electricity part, their savings, that can go to work part of the payment to work that's 7,000 or 8,000 or whatever.
And that's why we're talking about there are costs upfront, but there is also lifetime costs and return on investment, right? That you have to take into account. Yeah.
Yeah, because of PG&E's inflation, it is projected that the average homeowner, if they don't go solar, will probably spend over $100,000 of their money with PG&E over the next 20 years.
So now, related question is, since we are talking about ADU, now if someone do a brand new standalone ADU in the backyard, my understanding is they need to put the solar anyway because of the new rule. Now,
correct.
From your perspective in here, do they still need to upgrade the main house also, or that is independent?
So that's a great question. My understanding is if someone already has a solar system that is overproducing, they wouldn't necessarily need to add additional panels. If they don't have solar at all, then they have the option to just put solar on the ADU or do both the house and the ADU.
But
and
they don't need to put in the main house unless they want to. Okay.
Yes, there are exceptions to the rule though. Like I mentioned before, if the roof is too small, or if say the ADU is constructed under a bunch of huge trees where it has a good amount of shading, those are exceptions to the solar initiative.
So they will. Okay. So they will be waived for that, because they cannot do anything even they put one on. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, it would not benefit them to put solar panels when are trees, and it wouldn't benefit.
So there's a waiver on the law for that.
Yes.
Okay.
But don't forget every site is so unique that you cannot give the answer that covers everything. It's like we call every homeowner is a unique butterfly, every site is a unique butterfly, every house is a unique butterfly. And I know, guys, you have experience with this. Did you ever have to actually advise homeowners to upgrade their roof first or somehow increase the structural support before installing the panels? Does that happen?
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I can also add to it. So I had to do it once where, typically under a roof, we have plywood sheeting. It's been the case since, I don't know, 80s at least, and it's the code. But I think there are houses that are built before that have not changed roofs. Some of them in certain, I think, parts of San Jose, you find some of them in Fremont as well, where they have something called as recessed sheeting. So it's not end-to-end plywood. You've got like supports in between, which is something that is against the code. And we had to have one house where we asked them to put a sheeting. And again, we have our the people who install for us are also roofers, and we again connected the house, but it's the same people who did the same contractors who did the roofing for us, were the same people who did solar for us as well. But that was one example where they had to go and modify the roof.
Anyways, it was great having you both here. I can only say that my hat of a homeowner's advocate is try to start your projects from the end results, looking at what you would like to have in your house, and then always go around and collect at least 3 bids for all your projects so that you know that you're getting a fair price. And thank you again, Samir. Thank you, Erin, for taking time with us today.
A pleasure being here. Thank you for the
opportunity. Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.